Hey everybody, John Proulx here. Do you want to learn an exciting way to play over the 2-5-1 chord progression? Well, today I have a really fun game that will show you tons of licks to use over major 2-5-1s. It's a kind of call and response using 3 of the most common scales. Are you ready to play? And let's go! Alright, so welcome to 2-5-1 licks for jazz. Now when we're talking about 2-5-1 licks, oftentimes we think of scales and we think of techniques and exercises, and that tends to sound more academic, right? But I think a good way to think of this is in terms of a game or something that's very creative. And I came up with this really fun game where we use these 2-5-1s and it gets the creative juices flowing, because the way we're going to do it is we have 2 different 2-5-1s. We have what's called a medium 2-5-1 where we have 2 chords per measure. So we have a 2 chord, we have a 5 chord, and we have a 1 chord in the key of C. 2 beats each for the 2, the 5, and then 4 beats for the 1 chord. And then we have what's called the long 2-5, where we have the 2 chord for a full bar, the 5 chord for a full bar, and the 1 chord for 2 bars. So those are the 2 templates we're using for this game. So the cool thing about this game is that we're going to play the same lick on the 2 chord. So for the medium 2-5-1, we have this lick here, which starts on the 5 of the 2 chord. So it's 5, 3, 2, 1. And that's the same thing we're going to use for all of these different examples on this medium 2-5. But then on the 5 chord, you get to fill in the rest of the chord, and we're going to use 3 different scales. So we're going to use the Mixolydian scale, we're going to use the Bebop dominant scale, and we're going to use the dominant diminished scale. Those are the 3 scales we're going to use over the 5 chord. But it'll sound something like this. We're going to start with the same lick, and then the 5 chord you'll come up with your own lick, for example, right? And then the second time you could do something completely different. And the third time you could do something different. And the 4th time do something different. So it's really fun. It keeps your creative juices flowing. So let's go to the long 2-5 now, and we have this different lick on the 2 chord. So we go 1, 2, 3, 4, and then this is just like the first one, 5, 3, 2, 1. So it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 3, 2, 1. That's our lick for the 2 chord. And then you're going to fill in the 5 chord with these 3 different scales I'm going to show you in a minute. Or you might go. Or you might go. Really, the possibilities are endless, and that's what's so fun about this. But by keeping the 2 chord the same, you don't have to think about the 2 chord. We're really just kind of focusing on that 5-1 chord progression, and it's a lot of fun. So I just wanted to mention too, the left hand is going to be playing just shells. So your left hand is going to play the root and the 7th of D minor 7, and then you're going to play the G and the F, which is the root 7 of G7, and then the root and the 7th of C major 7. So we're just playing the shells in the left hand, so we don't have to think about that too much. Again, the focus is going to be on the right hand. So the first dominant scale we're going to talk about is the Mixolydian scale. And the Mixolydian scale, just to review, is the 5th mode of C major scale. So C major scale, and if we start the C major scale on G, we'd have this. That's called G Mixolydian. Another way of looking at that is it's a G major scale with a flat 7. And that flat 7 is because we have a minor 7 in our dominant chord in our left hand. So that's why we have that F natural in our right hand. So before we play any licks or anything like that, let's just review this scale. And again, it's the same fingering as you would do for G major. So it's 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Let's try that together. And 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. Okay, so first we're going to start with a medium 2-5-1, and if you notice in your left hand here we're playing root 7, but then for the 1 chord we're playing root 3. And the reason is because sometimes when you're doing shells you can either do root 7 or you can also do root 3. And also if you look at the line, I'm I'm playing the major 7 with my right hand, so that's why I chose the 3rd rather than the 7, otherwise we'd have doubling the same note. So let me explain how I came up with this particular lick using the Mixolydian scale. So I started on the 5 of the D minor and went down here, and that's just like we did from the template, right? 5, 3, 2, 1. But then on the 5 chord, we go, here's the 5, or the root of G. This note here is the 13th of G. That's the 5th, that's the 13th, and then we go down to the major 7 of the 1 chord. Also, it's a kind of a sequence. If you look at this first part, da, 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 and it's going down in terms of the direction, right? And then this is also going down, da, da, da. But then I went up, and then down to the major 7. So you can really experiment with the direction of the line, da, 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 da. That's 2 lines that are going down like this. You could go da 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 da. You could go the other direction as well. So think about the direction of the line, and again, you're just using this Mixolydian scale, which is kind of nice because it's really a C major scale. I'm also looking to target a chord tone on the 1 chord. So for C major 7, some of the nice notes that you can target are the 7th, like this. You could target the 9th, which sounds really nice. You could target the 3rd, the 5th, or the 6th. You can also target the root, but the root can kind of rub sometimes against the major 7. So I usually, when I'm targeting the 1 chord, I'll use either the 7th, the 9th, the 3rd, the 5th, or the 6th. Those are the ones I like to target. Okay, so now let's try this game together. We're going to play with a backing track, and what we're going to do is I'm going to play the first time, and then you can join me the second time playing this exact lick, just so you can learn this particular lick. And then you're going to do 2 more times of the 2-5-1 by yourself and come up with your own lick. So we're going to try this little game together. Are you ready? Here we go. So I'll start. Now join me this time. Now your turn. And one more time. Great. And that's a lot of fun. And you know, we're only doing this couple examples, but you can really take this and just keep going. I mean, I wrote out this lick book that I think had at least 20 to get started. And that's something that you can do as well. You can actually write out some of these licks for yourself, and just so that you remember them. It's kind of a lick book of sorts, right, that you can use to refer back to. So let's move on to the long 2-5-1 now, using the Mixolydian scale. So again, for the 2 chord, it's going to be the same lick that we did before. It's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 3, 2, 1. Now on the 5 chord, I started the same. So this is the root, 13, 5. This is the 4th down to the 3rd, 4th, 5, 13. And then instead of going to the major 7, I went down to the 6th. Again, it's a nice note to target there on the major 7. So the lick goes like this. And again, in terms of the shape of the line, we have, this is going up, down, right? And then from the D, I jump up to the 4th, which again is the root of G, and then we're going down, and then up, and then back down. So you can kind of map out the direction of the line as well, and that's really a fun thing that you can try, altering the shape of the line. So okay, let's try the game together now. Again, I'm going to play it the first time, you join me the second time, and then you come up with your own lines using this template of, on the 2 chord, and then the 5 and the 1, you come up with your own lick, okay? Let's try it together. Here we go. 2, 3, 4, join me, here we go. 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, your turn. One more time. Great. Now, one thing you can try as well on the one chord, I know I was saying that just to target a certain note on the one chord, whether it be the 6th or the major 7 or the 9th or the 3rd, the 5th. But you can also, because we have 2 measures for that C major 7, you can fill up some of those 2 measures by extending the line a little bit further. So you could do something like this. So I went all the way through to the last bar. So you're more than welcome to continue the line, but for the example that I showed you, we just ended on the C major 7 on the downbeat and held that for 2 bars. So you have some flexibility there. All right, for scale number 2, we have what's called the bebop dominant scale, which is very similar to the Mixolydian scale, except for one note. So in our Mixolydian scale, as we saw, it's just a G major scale with a flat 7, or you can think of it as a C major scale starting on G, right? But for the bebop dominant scale, what we have is a Mixolydian scale with a flat 7 and the natural 7, or the major 7. So it creates this really interesting chromaticism between the root, the major 7, and the minor 7. And it sounds really nice, in fact, in descending motion, doesn't it? So let's practice that scale together. We're going to start with G, go up, half step up to the top, and then back down. In fact, John Philip Sousa used that in a march. He was very hip. Anyway, we're using this scale now, one note different, but it really adds a lot of chromaticism to that Mixolydian scale. So let's look at this medium 2-5-1. Again, we're starting off the 2 chord the same way. 5, 3, 2, 1. But now look what we do on this 5 chord using this bebop dominant scale. We have root, flat 7, 7, root, and then I went down to the 3rd of the C major. So we have da ba do do da 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 da. And I love this chromaticism because it's very snake-like. It's sort of enclosing all these different notes and then finally arriving on the major 3rd. So it's a lot of fun to use this line. We're going to try it now with the track. I'm going to play it through the first time. You join me the second time, and then go ahead and use that bebop dominant scale on your own. Now, one thing to think about when we have this short, or I should say medium 2-5-1, is that we only have 4 notes on the 5 chord, right? Because we only have 4 eighth notes. So using the chromaticism is nice on this because we only have the 4 notes, but really you can use any of the notes out of this bebop dominant scale. All right, here we go. Let's try this together. Try with me. Here we go. Now your turn. And again. Great. And you could keep this going and going and going and just recycle this chord progression over and over again, and you'll be dreaming about 2-5-1s after a while. It's really a lot of fun. The ideas will be swimming in there. So let's look now at the long 2-5-1. Again, we're starting off the 2 chord the same, so we're going 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 3, 2, 1, right? But now we have a whole measure to come up with this using this bebop dominant scale. So what I did is went back up to this root and went root, 7, flat 7, up to the 9th, down to the 13th, down to the 3rd, and then resolved on the 9th of the C major chord. There was a guy named David Baker who had a book about bebop, and he had this lick that he would do, and it would go ba ba do da da da, and that's the same idea of using this bebop dominant scale. It's going root 7, flat 7, 9, 13, 5. So feel free to use that lick if you'd like as well. That's a David Baker original. Ba ba do da da da. So I kind of used part of that here, ba da da da, but then I went da da down to the 3rd and then up to the 9th. Isn't that nice? And again, in terms of the direction, we're going up. Now we're going, starting on the root, down, up, down, down, up to the 9th. Let's try that together. We're going to play it through 2 times, and then you try it the 3rd and 4th time. Here we go. 2, 3, 4. Try with me. 2, ready, go. Your turn. One more time. Nice. If you want to learn more about bebop scales, we have a great course on Piano with Jonny that covers all the bebop scales that you can use over a 2-5-1 chord progression. And finally, we're at scale number 3, which is one of my favorite scales, the dominant diminished scale. And we're going to go through the dominant diminished scale as a review, but what I love about the dominant diminished scale is that it uses some of the really interesting chord alterations. So when we have a dominant chord here, G7 for example, the dominant diminished, it alternates half steps and whole steps. So it starts with a half step first, then it goes whole step, half step, whole step, half step, whole step, half step, whole step, and descending in the same way. And what I love about it is that it uses the flat 9, here's the sharp 9, there's the major third, then it has the sharp 11, the 5th, the 13th, the flat 7, and then the root, and going back down, root, 7, 13, 5, sharp 11, 3, sharp 9, flat 9, and usually it resolves to a 1 chord. And so it's a very versatile scale, and it uses, again, a lot of these color tones of the 5 chord. And so on this medium 2-5-1 here, we have this, it starts the same way, the 2 chord, right? 5, 3, 2, 1, and I started it up an octave just because I didn't want to get in the way of my left hand here. So I'm starting here, and then this leads beautifully to the sharp 11 of the dominant diminished scale, and then I'm just descending on this dominant diminished scale, which leads to the 5th of the 1 chord. Isn't that a beautiful scale there? So we have da 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 da, or sharp 11, 3, sharp 9, flat 9, 5 of the 1 chord. Okay, so we're going to try this lick together a couple times, and then you're going to come up with your own line using this dominant diminished scale a couple times through this medium 2-5-1. Here we go. All right, here we go. And join me here. Here we go. All right, now make one up yourself. Here we go. One more time. Nice. And the great thing with the diminished scale, the dominant diminished scale, is because it's built in minor thirds, the diminished scale, if you could scroll up to the scale, we have the dominant diminished scale. If we look at the root, there's the 3rd. These are all minor thirds, aren't they? In fact, if we go up a half step, we have A flat, B, D, F. So this scale consists of 2 fully diminished chords. And the great thing about this scale is that if I do a pattern, for example, if I go ba ba da da, starting on the 3rd, I can go up a minor 3rd from there and play the same thing. And I can go up another minor 3rd and another minor 3rd. And I could do the same thing coming down. I could go. So the scale is great because it's very versatile and it's built in minor thirds, so you can create these patterns using these minor thirds. And I'm going to demonstrate that in this next one, which is the long 2-5-1. Again, because we have a whole measure on the 5 chord, which is great. So we're going to use the dominant diminished scale, starting off the 2 chord the same way. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 3, 2, 1. But now here's that thing that I was just mentioning, starting with the root. This is the pattern. We're going ba-da, Now I'm going to go up a minor third, da, da, up another minor third from B flat would be C sharp, and then I go down the scale to the 5 of the 1 chord. So this is the lick. Da, 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 da. Isn't that beautiful? And you could continue the lick if you had the 5 for a little bit longer. You could go. You can keep that going as long as you wanted to, right? It's just one of those licks that's great because it's built in minor thirds. So that's going to be our lick. We're going to go. We'll play that through 2 times, and then you're going to make up your own lick on the 5 chord using that dominant diminished scale a couple of different times, all right? All right, here we go. All right, try with me. 2, ready, go. All right, your turn. Here we go. One more time. That's great. And you know, this is, like I said, one of my favorite scales to use because it uses those juicy notes, those, you know, the sharp 9, flat 9, sharp 11. And so for me, when I'm playing a 5 chord, I use this scale a lot, and you just get a lot of bang for your buck in terms of these beautiful chord extensions you can use on the dominant diminished scale. Thanks again for joining me with this 2-5-1 game. I think it's a lot of fun to be able to go through something that's typically an exercise or a technique and to make it fun, make it into a game that you can use in practicing these 3 dominant scales and really getting into it and just extending it. I know we only did short examples, but really extend that. Let that 2-5-1 just keep playing and just have fun, be creative, coming up with your own lines, and then also apply those to some songs you're working on, because so many jazz songs have this chord progression of 2-5-1. And even though we are playing in the key of C, we always recommend at Piano with Jonny to transpose the songs into other keys or play in some other keys, because oftentimes these songs are not always in the key of C. So anyway, have fun, enjoy the game, and we'll see you around soon. Bye-bye.
Thanks for watching, and if you enjoyed the lesson, be sure to check out pianowithjonny.com. We have over 1,000 step-by-step lessons for all playing levels, where you'll learn your favorite songs, styles, and how to improvise at the piano. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.